Thunder has won as frequently in the last week as it did in the first month of the NBA season. Has it turned a corner? I'm Mike Sherman, and this is Inside Thunder Basketball with Darnell Mayberry. Darnell, the Thunder has won 2 of its last 3. The only loss, a last-second dagger struck in the heart by Denver's Carmelo Anthony. What's happened to the worst team in the NBA?
I think they're playing with confidence now. I mean, you look at when they went to Detroit, I think that sort of got the ball rolling when they played well, and they almost won it until Allen Iverson came up and hit that game winner with, I think it was a couple seconds left. But that sort of got the ball rolling. They had a sort of a setback in D.C., but then they got the ball rolling again, and then Denver happens to them. Carmelo just rips their hearts out basically with that last-second three-pointer over Desmond Mason. But I think they're playing a lot more confident, and you kind of see it in the locker room, on the practice court, and in games.
Does that allow for what you wrote about today, which basically is a story on News OK right now and also in the Oklahoman about how in the midst of a swoon against the Knicks, a 23-point lead goes down to 2, players are calling each other out. When you have confidence, you can take that kind of criticism. You can take that kind of talk. Is that what's behind what's happening to this team?
And I think it's some of that, and I also think that these players, Desmond Mason had a great quote. He said that, these players have been together long enough now this season where they are starting to feel comfortable with each other, where they can talk to one another like that. Earlier in the season, they had a lot of new guys, Joe Smith and Desmond, Kyle Weaver, and all these guys hadn't played together all that long. I mean, Russell Westbrook was new. So now they're starting to finally get comfortable with one another, where they know that, okay, look, we can't take it personally. Whenever someone gets on us, let's just take it as constructive criticism and move on. And that's sort of what they're doing now.
Okay, take us to the moment, Darnell, that you write about in the paper today. The Thunder's lead has gotten down to 2. It's back and forth between 2, 3, 4, and 5, but there's a sense of dread in the Ford Center. You can read it in the player's face. Jeff Green has already missed 2 free throws. He goes back to the line and misses another one. And Joe Smith does what?
He comes up to him, he taps him on the chest a couple times, and he says basically, and not so politely, make your free throws, and let's go home. Because if Jeff Green makes, those, he missed 3 out of 4. He made the last one. If he made all 4 of those, I think you're looking at, instead of a 5-point game, you're looking at an 8-point game. So with a minute and a half to play. So it's just little things like that. Kevin Durant got on, I think it was Damian Wilkins when he made a turnover, and he really just stared him down and had some choice words for him. Russell Westbrook, when he was trying to run the clock out, he could have passed to a wide-open Kevin Durant, and Durant, it turned out being a joke between the two, but Durant was like, I'm open, give me the ball. And then Russell goes down and misses one of the 2 free throws to ice the game. So it's just little things like that where these players are starting to hold each other accountable.
Now, Darnell, a win makes all things good. If they lose, does that become a story or a thought about these guys are pointing fingers at each other?
Definitely. If they lost that game, I think you look at that completely different. And it happens in every sport on every level. The fact that it looks like a positive when you win, and it looks like a negative when you lose.
Okay, let's talk about something that's been nothing but positive for the Thunder in the last month, and that's the development, improvement of Kevin Durant. Look, the guy was the Rookie of the Year, so we're not talking about somebody who wasn't spectacular last year, because he was. But if you look at his stats, averaging 4 more points a game, averaging almost 2 more rebounds, shooting almost 4% better, from 3-point range better, getting to the line marginally more than he was last year. What's happened in the last month to Kevin Durant?
When the season first started, he was struggling with his shot, especially in the Ford Center. He was playing much better on the road than he was at home. I think, first of all, he settled into playing in the Ford Center, and that was back when P.J. Carlesimo was coach. So he started to settle down at home. And then all of a sudden, Scott Brooks comes in and moves him from shooting guard to small forward. He's playing a lot closer to the basket. He's getting more rebounds. He's getting more layups and dunks. He's getting a lot easier shots than camping out on the perimeter all the time. So I think that's helped him. His efficiency has been the most impressive. He's still shooting about 46, 47%, and he's in low 40s, low to mid 40s from 3-point percentage, and he's shooting higher than guys like Dirk Nowitzki from 3-point range. So that to me is impressive.
Also, taking last night's game, I think he's something like 11 of 15 from the field or something close to that.
Yeah.
But his only misses from what I could see in the stat report, were from three-point range. He looked like he was perfect from two-point range.
I think there was one point in the game he was 7 of 8 or 8 of 9. I mean, he got off to a really good start.
And also what's happening now is the move over of him to the three. He's getting more open looks on three-pointers now.
I think, Russell Westbrook, I think, is having a little bit to do with that. Penetration, kick it out to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's getting some open looks because of Russell Westbrook and his penetration. I think Russell is finally starting to learn how to find the open man.
Going back to the draft of 2007, when Greg Oden and Kevin Durant were the two clear prospects at the top of the draft. Portland wins the lottery pick. Portland drafts first. You were firmly in the Greg Oden camp. You still feel good about that position?
Well, let me make something clear, because for some reason you don't seem to understand this. I said at the time, if you're a GM, you have to take Greg Oden. Personally, I would have taken Kevin Durant, but that's why I'm not a GM. If you're a GM and you took Kevin Durant over Greg Oden, I think that's a fireable offense. You have to take a franchise center who doesn't come around but once every 10, 15 years. But certainly when you look back at it now, especially since Greg Oden is not off to the start that people thought that he should have been, you look at Kevin Durant, he should have been that number one pick.
Okay, let's go on to the next big man in the Thunder's future. That's Nenad Krstić. Give me the latest on his timetable.
Well, we all thought that he'd probably see 8 to 10 minutes last night against the Knicks, but Scott Brooks wanted to hold him out. He said that he's still not completely comfortable with the playbook. He's still sort of overthinking things, and it's not coming naturally to him. It's sort of a contradiction to what he's been saying all week, that he's picking up things fast.
His high basketball
IQ. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they played him a little bit tonight against Minnesota on the road. Mike Baldwin actually made a really good point to Scott Brooks last night before the game. He said, so if you don't play him tonight against Minnesota, you're going to unveil him against Yao Ming on Friday. I don't think that's what you want the guy to do, and he hasn't played in the NBA all season. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get some minutes tonight. If not, then Friday I think you have to play him.
Is there a cram session on the team charter up to Minneapolis or at shoot-around today?
He's been cramming since the original press conference on December 30th. So, I'm sort of surprised that he's not on the court at this point.
And what do you think he's going to do for the team once he does get on the court?
He's going to give them a consistent post score. Not that he's going to score in the post all the time, but I mean a big man who can score consistently. They haven't gotten that out of Joe Smith, Nick Collison, Chris Wilcox, Johan Petro, and Robert Swift. Obviously is not an offensive player. So he's going to give them a guy who can get you 10, 12 points every night. Some nights 20. So I think that's going to help them and take some of the load off of Jeff Green, Kevin Durant, and Russell Westbrook.
Okay, we've talked a lot about trades in the NBA. There's been a lot of trades out in the rumor mill talked about, including the names of some Thunder players. Let's talk about the cost and benefit of considering or dealing a couple of these guys. I'll name them. You tell me about the cost and benefit. First, Joe Smith.
Well, the benefit of dealing him is you could get a first-round pick from him like Sam Presti did with Kurt Thomas last year. That's the biggest benefit. The cost is you lose a veteran leader who's he missed 3 games with a knee injury. He came back against the Knicks. He comes in, he takes 2 minutes into the game, not even, he takes a mid-range jumper and he nails it like he hasn't missed a beat. Most guys you look at, you say, you haven't played in forever. You come in and you shoot, what are you doing? But Joe Smith is so consistent with what he brings to the table that he can do that. So you lose a veteran leader in Joe Smith. So I don't think, long term, it's not that big of a deal because he's 33 years old. If you can get a future draft pick for him or a young player, I think that's a good thing.
But last night, he had 2 blocks in a critical juncture that you wrote about what he did for Jeff Green motivationally. Mm-hmm. Any chance they keep him for what he does in the locker room and on the court?
I think the only way they keep him is if they don't get enough value for him. If they don't get a first-round pick, a mid-first-round pick, or a young player that they are really high on, I think they keep him. But other than that, I don't think you keep him because he has that expiring contract, and obviously I don't think they're going to re-sign a 33-year-old veteran, 14-year veteran, and just keep him to the mix of young players.
Okay, Chris Wilcox.
Well, the benefit of dealing Chris Wilcox is that you have a logjam at power forward center now with Nenad Krstić here. Someone has to seemingly go. And Chris Wilcox, again, has been sort of the most inconsistent of the bigs this season. He's been injury plagued. He's been up and down in terms of his numbers. He'll come out and give you 12 points and 8 rebounds, or 15 points and 8 rebounds, and then he'll come out and be in foul trouble and give you 6 points. So the fact that he also has an expiring contract, I think he's going to want a lot more money than he's proven he's worth on the free agency market this summer.
Okay, Nick Collison, kind of in the same category as the first two guys.
Yeah, I think the benefit or the cost of dealing Nick Collison, if they deal Nick Collison, is that Nick Collison is one of the few guys on the team that doesn't need the ball to be effective. He'll play defense. He'll get on the floor for loose balls. And I know Sam Presti, the GM, really loves that about Nick Collison. He does the dirty work. He doesn't need the ball to be effective. So whenever you have guys like that are considered glue guys, you want to hold on to them. But the benefit is, he has value. Playoff teams could look at Nick Collison and say he could be a piece coming off the bench for us that sort of puts us over the hump.
Okay, finally, Earl Watson.
The biggest cost of dealing Earl Watson is that you need to get a backup point guard in here at some point. You only have Russell Westbrook and Earl Watson. Kyle Weaver is a guy they traded for from Charlotte with the intention of playing him sometime at point guard and shooting guard. But if you deal Earl Watson, you're rushing a rookie point guard who's not really a point guard into emergency duty as your backup point guard. Backup point guards generally play 20 minutes in that 20, 22, 25-minute range. That's a lot of minutes for Kyle Weaver at this point. So that's the biggest cost of dealing Earl Watson.
Okay, finally, Darnell, 2 out of 3. Thunder's won 2 out of 3. They appear to have turned a corner. What corner is it?
I would say, can you call it a hot streak?
Maybe.
They're 0.1 second away from winning 3 straight if it weren't for Carmelo Anthony. So I think the fact that they're playing consistent, they're not getting blown out of games, they're getting big leads on teams like you saw 23 against the Knicks. They're playing inspiring basketball, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Is it a corner of confidence and doubt? That's the corner they've turned.
Well, I wouldn't say doubt, because they're really playing well. They've played most of their recent games well, and I think they're going into these next 4 against Minnesota, Houston, Chicago, and New Jersey. I think they're going into those with confidence, and those are all winnable games. So we'll talk next week and see where they really are. If they get 2 of those 4 or 3 of those 4, then we're looking at a completely different ball team.
Okay, thanks, Darnell. That's all for Inside Thunder Basketball, but you can continue the conversation at thundermadness.com and stay with the best coverage team anywhere, up to the minute at newsok.com and every morning in the Oklahoma.